everybody. I'm Wayward Jessica, and this is Not Your Safe Zone. Today, we got an interesting topic to talk about. It is ableism and homophobia in the Black community. And we have some badass people on our panel today. We have the Deaf Princess, Tia My Loves, the Black Girl Warrior, and John Daniel. So how y'all doing today?
Doing good.
Blessed and highly favored.
Living my terrible life, but being blessed at the same time.
And what about you, Black Girl Warrior?
Sensational.
All right. So we're going to hop into it. Let's start off with a little icebreaker. How about y'all name your top 3 favorite foods or snacks and introduce yourselves? Who want to go first?
I'll go first.
Pick? Okay.
I'll go first. You said my top 3 favorite foods?
Yep. Top 3 favorite comfort foods or snacks.
Okay.
And introduce yourself.
Hello. I am the Deaf Princess on TikTok, or Nikki, or Lorena on Instagram. And my 3 favorite foods, it would be tacos, and ice cream.
She said tacos, and ice cream. Okay, who want to go next?
Peace, love, and salutations from your favorite Black non-binary individual here. I am Tia My Loves on TikTok. Well, with an S as of right now, because TikTok be on some funny-ish. But 3 favorite foods. It's going to sound really bad. Tacos, lasagna, and Takis.
Ooh, lasagna definitely in there for me too. Okay, who's next? John, Black Girl Warrior.
Hello. I am everybody's, love to hate, the Black Girl Warrior. Greetings and salutations. My favorite foods at the top 3 are mac and cheese, baked, tacos, of course. I agree. And anything chocolate. That's the way to my heart.
John?
The Black Girl Warrior. If I was straight, we would be soulmates, because 100% baked macaroni and cheese, chocolate, and vanilla ice cream. For sure. And I'm John. I am representing the queer community, as it were. I don't really identify as anything specific, but queer.
Okay, and I am Jessica. I am bisexual, and I also have CPTSD. My 3 favorite foods. Lasagna would have to be one of them for sure. These strawberry puff gummies. And I know my sister who is watching is going to cringe hearing it, but they my favorite. And I have this little concoction that I make. I call it my cheesy bacony noodles. I make those are my favorite for sure. Okay, so let's hop into it. So for everybody who may not understand, can you kind of give us a rundown of your disability and or your gender identity or sexuality, just so that everybody knows who's speaking from what space? Tia, you want to start?
Sure. So I'm non-binary, so I do not identify with the 2 I guess socially norm genders. I don't identify as male or female, even though my sex is female because I was born female at birth. I got the chi-chis. I get it. I'm I am a girl, but I am non-binary. I am polyamorous, so that means my husband and I, we date other people together. We're partnered polyamorous, so we'll have a girlfriend, whatever. I used to identify more as bisexual, but now that I've started more so hopping into the community that I have been wanting to, get more involved in, I would probably more so identify as pansexual less than bisexual, because to me, it, as long as you have a good heart, you are a person who doesn't judge, you're not racist. I don't care. I love who I love, and there's nothing telling me that I can't.
Yeah, I definitely I understand that. I for one I still identify as bisexual because I don't have experience dating these other communities, but nothing is a non-starter for me as long as you're not a piece of shit. It doesn't matter if you're trans, non-binary, whatever. I don't care. Just treat me the way that I would treat you. Um, so I definitely get that. I've been actually struggling with what should I identify as, because I'm not into just the two, like just the two genders, as they say that bisexuality is. Um, so yeah, that's definitely something that we can talk about tonight. Who wants to go next?
I am Black Girl Warrior. Once again, I am identify as bisexual, but I do have a preference, like Jess just said, I do have a preference for not just people of one or the other gender. I do have a preference for, if I'm with a man at the moment, I'm with a man at the moment. If I like a woman at the moment, I like a woman at the moment. I do not exclude trans men or women. I love who I love. And I also do have an identity with the disabled community. I have epilepsy. So that's pretty much where I stand.
Okay, thank you. Deaf Princess, John. Don't make me pick. Okay, John, go ahead. I see your hand over there.
All right, I'm John Daniel. I like to just do like an umbrella statement, like queer. Now, do I feel super gay? Yes, but I never want to put like a boundary or like a limit. So I just use queer. Primarily, I'm interested in men, and also I have fibromyalgia.
Oh, you do?
Sure do.
Honey, I never knew.
Girl, well, it's not something that it's not in my bio, you know.
I know, but I mean, look, I'm sure you have a lot to say about some of the questions I'm going to ask tonight, then, because I know it is with invisible chronic diseases, illnesses. It is, we get some heat.
Girl.
All right, Deaf Princess, you're up.
Hello, Deaf Princess, obviously. So I am, as it says, deaf. That's probably like the given. And I also have BPD, bipolar. And I am pansexual as well. I guess like now, like since everybody, because as we're learning more about how sexuality works and what these terms mean, just trying to come up with these new things since it's a fairly new term. I always knew from the get go I was not straight. I actually thought I was lesbian at first. Then I thought I was like, okay, bi I'm bi, I guess. And so now for the last 2 years I've been pansexual. So it's a lot. It's a gray area. Everything's gray. So
I mean, your sexuality matches your hair. It's all a gray area, and that's cool. That's cool. Um, okay. So, in general, speaking from y'all's experience, what are your experiences in the Black community when your disability or sexuality becomes known? And does your experience within the Black community, how you're treated once that's known, differ from other communities? Like, say, if you're in white people spaces or in other POC spaces, does it differ? Or straight spaces, or versus LGBTQIA plus spaces? Who want to go first?
I'll go first. So it took a really long time to actually like come out as just bisexual for me. Like I've always, like I'm sure a lot of us could agree, I knew from a very young age I didn't just like guys. Like it's not that I wasn't attracted to them, because clearly I married a man. I'm attracted to them, but there was always something about females that just would draw me to the idea of just wanting to be intimate with one, or just to have a intimate relationship with a female. And when I came out to my mom twice, and when I first came out to her as bisexual, she didn't believe me. And this was before Chris Brown did the thing with Rihanna. She would tell me, "You're too obsessed with Chris Brown to love women. This is just a phase. You'll get over it." And I ended up telling her again about 3 years ago, and she was just like, it was like a completely different conversation. She was like, "Well, you're getting married to a man. Why does this matter now?" And I was like, "Because it's still me. What if something happens to to Peter, that's my husband's name, and it doesn't work out and I bring home a woman and you're just super confused?" She's like, "Well, I love you." I was like, "Why didn't you say that when I was in middle school, Mom? You had me over here wanting to unalive myself sometimes. The heck?" And she's like, "I just didn't get it." And I think that's like a really huge stigma in the Black community when it comes to being bisexual or just pansexual and just loving whoever you love, because of the fact that you can't love more than one gender. It's already hard enough to imagine loving the same sex for our community, but to love multiple, oh no. Like, and I think that's where people get confused. Like, they say it's just a phase, or we're trying to get attention, and they're not even willing to have a conversation with us about why. And I'm glad that we are able to have this conversation here, and answer the hard questions that people are struggling to ask. So I that's just my take on it.
I agree there. I don't think this topic is brought up enough within our community. It kind of gets glazed over, or I'm sure y'all have heard, "Oh, you haven't met the right man. You haven't met the right woman," or "You don't know what you're talking about." Um, and I think that's very harmful to us being part of the Black community, and a big part of the Black community ignores the intersectionality that we have. Um, we we need to be protected as well, for being LGBTQIA plus or disabled, or what have you. So um, yeah, who's got something for me? Who's next?
So I first came out as being bisexual to my mom at about 16, because I realized I did have a bit of a crush on a lot of females. I'm sorry, a lot of women, but at the time, young women, because I was, teenager, and they were teenagers, so you can't say women. So I don't think she took me seriously, and I still don't think I was taken seriously enough. But now at this time and age, she's just like, I was like, so if I brought home a woman, would you be accepting of that? she was cool with it, but still does not take me seriously. And as far as being a person of color with a disability, a Black woman with a disability goes, it's like pulling teeth, I swear. I have told people over 1,001 times, when you have a disability, it is not so easy as to just be like, oh, well, you'll get over it. And oh, well, you'll get over, you got to stop using your disability as a crutch to do X, Y, and Z. I'm like, bro, I have a condition that debilitates me, that to the point that I pass out. Excuse me? So the way those two kind of like go hand in hand is crazy to me. But the bottom line for me is just people really think we're faking when I have epilepsy. I'm sorry, I should have probably pointed out earlier. And the way people don't realize how that goes hand in hand, especially in the community, and they assume that we think we're faking our seizures, or people think that we're faking to be bisexual or faking our likes for women. I'm appalled, honestly. And it's kind of disgusting because then there's always that one guy or that one girl that swears up and down they can make you come to their side just like that. Or you haven't found the right, y'all haven't found the right man or the right woman to make you feel that way. And it's really appalling. It's just, it irks my, it hurts, and it makes a lot of us afraid of coming out. I might not be gay, but I'm not straight either. So we're literally stuck in the middle, and people think that it's just so easy to write us off as lesbian, lesbian, homosexual. It's not. It's not that easy. We can't help who we love. Simple as that. And I can't help how my body works. And that's all.
I agree. Deaf Princess?
Yeah, so mine goes a couple ways. So with our community and being deaf, it's kind of a double-edged sword. So a little bit of history lesson for being deaf and Black. We were denied the access to the same language when ASL was basically being formed, right? So like a lot of like way back in the day, it was basically against it if your child had a deformity, like they couldn't hear, you left the baby out on the stoop, or you turned it into a church or something like that, and we don't really care what happened to the baby after that. But when it actually started to become normal to keep children with disabilities, obviously there was an access of language, right? We can't hear you. So something else had to be done. We had to make up our own language. So ASL was started, sign language was started by using like common gestures, pointing at things, all types of stuff. And when ASL actually became a language, like there was actually grammar and rules and structure to it where you could communicate with another person that was deaf. Because of segregation, Black people lack that access. So we actually formed our own language. Like there is such thing as Black ASL or BASL, which is a completely separate. We had to make up our own sign language to be able to communicate within our own community because we were not given the same access as our white counterparts when it came to struggling through what it meant to be deaf and gaining access through that. So that's the positive part, that even being deaf, Black people have a subculture in our own culture of being deaf and Black. And then there's the mental part, right? There's, oh, you're deaf. Do I have to learn sign language? Do you read lips? Like, what are you going to do to make it easier for me to be able to date you or to be able to communicate with you? Like employment, all of those things. Like, even in the deaf community, or even in the Black community, you are still stigmatized by, like, okay, well, you're going to have to catch up, kid, because we're not going to slow down for you. We're not going to provide you accommodations. You better already have all of that figured out. Like, and I'm late deaf, and I figured that out quickly. So I didn't go deaf until my 20s. I was born hearing. So everything was just given to me, being able to hear. Refiguring out how to make my life accessible, I had to do that on my own. Learning about ASL and BASL, I had to do that on my own. There was nobody that was just like holding your hand, okay, you're deaf now, we're going to show you how to be deaf and Black. Like, as soon as I became deaf, I felt so isolated from my own community. Like, I felt like an outcast in my own family. Like, I'm yes, it's hard to learn a new language when you're an adult. And if you never had to use that language with a child because they weren't born that way, why would you pick up a whole new language to communicate with one person? So, like, a lot of my family are just like, okay, you're deaf. You'll figure out how to communicate with us if that's what you want to do. Like, and not in like a harmful way or a painful way. That's just kind of how it is. They're just like, you're the only deaf person we know, period. And you were clever enough to find all of these ways to make your life accessible. You got your hearing aids, you have your special headphones, you have your captions, you have everything that you need to be able to communicate with us so that we don't have to do the extra legwork. You know what I mean? To be able to communicate with you. We're not going to step into your space. And I think that is the huge flaw of the deaf community, is we are not willing to step into someone else's space that would be intersectionality if it doesn't directly affect our lives. And I can also say I was in that downfall. Like, yeah, I dabbled in ASL. I could do my alphabet before I went deaf. And I was like, oh yeah, the alphabet. Like, so if I had to communicate with someone that happened to be deaf, I'll just fingerspell it. But until that was taken from me and I was forced into that situation, I didn't realize the ableism that I even had within my own self, with, you know, learning basic sign language, what deaf people like to be called, not calling them hearing impaired, all of that stuff, not calling them stupid or treating them less than. Not that I did that, but I definitely get that now. I definitely get that now. And with my mental disability, like, it's easy for people to just call you crazy. Like, oh yeah, no, I have BPD and I'm bipolar. And they're like, oh, so you're crazy. And then you just write it off. They're like, oh, you're a psychopath. And they just write it off. Like, they literally would rather just not understand the inner workings of what it means to be someone else at all. And it's the most cold and isolating feeling that we continuously perpetuate.
So I have a couple of questions. So when looking for a partner, is them knowing ASL and stuff like that important to you? Or is it something that like, would you prefer that they like at least made that effort to learn and to try to understand, even if they may not? I mean, it's just like white people are never going to understand what we go through. People who are not deaf are not going to understand what you go through. So how do you navigate that? And does that affect, like, I know we all have heard this pro-Black conversation, and you can't be pro-Black if you date outside your race, blah, blah, blah. Does that affect who you date, as far as, like, people in other communities might be more receptive to, you know, might be more accepting of you being deaf than people in the Black community?
Absolutely. I find it a lot of other communities are a lot more accepting to even entertain the idea that of learning a couple signs than it is for the Black community. They're like, we got our own struggles, we got enough crap going on. But for me to like date a girl that's has broken ears, like I don't have time for this, like at all.
I'm gonna say this real quick. If one motherfucker tells you that you broken or you got broken ears, send them my way. Take me in, coach.
Look, I got a couple. I'm gonna send you some names. I got a list.
Send me addresses. I'm saying, like,
it's just like it's hard for them, and I really get it. Like, and that's why I open up with that. You know what I mean? Like, hi, I'm deaf, or like if I'm just out and about and I have my hearing aids on, it's a completely different person when I have my hearing aids on versus when I don't have my hearing aids on. Like right now I have two different things on my head to hear you guys, even modestly, and I have captions going to follow the conversation. That's what it takes for me to just be able to do this call with you guys. So for someone to be like, oh, and I'm just like, yeah, so if I don't have my hearing aids on and you're trying to talk to me, you're trying to communicate with me, like I can't hear you. Like if I'm not looking you directly in your face and I'm not even that good at reading lips, I won't even know you're talking to me. And they're just like, that just sounds like a whole lot of work. Like people are already work. You're telling me that you have emotional issues, and now you're telling me that I got to learn new languages. And then you're telling me like, what if you lose your hearing aids? What if your battery goes out? And then like, I'm not able to translate for you when something happens. And so then it also becomes like, I'm scared for you. Like, I don't want to be responsible for that. You know what I mean? Like if I don't know sign language good enough and something happens where you need me, like I'm the only person that can even halfway decently communicate with you. It's a scary situation. We just saw, we see it all the time. There was a creator on TikTok who got pulled over by the cops, and her 9-year-old child was forced to interpret for her because the cop was refusing to get an interpreter on site, was refusing to do any of the things that you need to do in accordance with the Access Act for deaf people or people with disabilities. And he's just like, no, she's 9. And if she's your daughter, she should be fluent. So you tell her what I'm saying. That is completely illegal. You know what I mean? And that would go for the exact same thing as if I was dating somebody. They're like, I don't want to be responsible for that. Like, I don't want, we're going out to eat. I don't want to have to look at you, tell you what what we're ordering and explain to her what you just said. But it's definitely a culture thing. Like the Black community, I feel, is a lot colder when it comes to being open to doing that versus any other community that I've been experienced with.
Yeah, I saw that video. That was utterly heartbreaking. And another thing is like those officers didn't take into consideration, like for instance, with you, you're a late deaf. So that woman could have just gone deaf, and her daughter may not have been able to interpret because she's teaching her daughter sign language or ASL. And none of that was thought at all by these officers. And definitely, as far as, and I've seen a couple on your TikToks that sometimes people just want, I think you call them quiet days. Like, and I don't think that people really understand that that's a lot of stimulation going on. Am I correct in that? Or
Yep, absolutely. So, and I do it so often, it's actually kind of rude. I'll just be like, boop, and we're done here. But it is overstimulating. So going from always being able to hear stuff to not being able to hear anything is, it's a shock. Like you can hear your own thoughts, but it's also a lot calm. But like now when you have, it's not really you hearing. So you have all of these devices hooked up to you. So there's like things in my ears, those get uncomfortable, they get itchy, or just sounds are not being received correctly. And it just sounds staticky or weird or underwater, different things like that. So like if I'm sitting here and it's just like, why do I hear wind all of the time indoors in my bathroom with no windows open? Like, why am I hearing wind? You know what I mean? Like, so things like that where there's never peace and quiet because you have these audio receivers in your ears all the time, magnifying what's around you. You just don't, I'm turning this off now. And it's peace and quiet. Like, most people would kill for the peace and quiet that I get. I don't have to worry about being woke up. Like, when I go to sleep,
I'm jealous.
it's a wrap.
I got 3 kids. I'm jealous.
So, yeah, you definitely, like, it's a lot to deal with. It's a lot to struggle with, especially with it now. It's not as clear as when I remember hearing it. And then even then that gets kind of like, that memory gets really distant. Like, what did this used to sound like before it was like an auto tune type of feel? You know what I mean? Like, this synthetic sounds that I'm hearing, and it doesn't sound like it used to. It's not as clear as it used to be. And you just need peace and quiet from that sometimes.
Sorry, had a bit of a just closed out for some reason. Okay, I didn't catch the last part of what you said, but I think we still have to get to John. Why is John always serving so much face? Because he's extra, and we love that about him. Do you want to give us your experiences with the Black community when your disability and your sexuality becomes known, and how it differs from other communities?
Yeah, so first off, my father's Black, but he's also a pastor. So I'm a pastor's kid. So I first told my parents I came out as gay originally to my parents when I was like 7 years old. And I remember my mom crying.
Hey, John. Hey, John. Is it possible, whatever you're using for your audio device, could you disconnect that? Just because I want your story to be heard, and right now it sounds like really, really, really muffled. That's all.
You hear me better now?
No, like disconnected. Like if it's Bluetooth, like turn the Bluetooth, turn the Bluetooth off real quick.
Let me try this.
There we go. Sorry, I just like I want you guys to be heard. Is all. That's all.
No, absolutely.
There you go, beloved. Take it away.
So,
take it away, beloved.
You know, being a pastor's kid and in a Black church, you know, that don't really go over too smooth. So I was 7 years old, and I remember my dad saying, well, you've never been with a man, so you're not gay. And I remember that sticking with me, like, what? But like, I know that I like men. And then I came out again at 15. And then again, it was kind of just dismissed, kind of just thrown under the rug. Oh, Lord. Tossed aside like my phone.
I was going to say thrown under the rug like a camera bag.
You know what I'm saying? Came with a theatrics. And finally, I was just like, you know what? Maybe they're right. Maybe we're going to pray it away. Maybe he's just going to come through on this. And it wasn't until I was 27 where I was like, listen, I'm not backing down. It is what it is. I'm at the point, I'm 35 now. So I've been through so many changes and have had so many moments where I'm like, I really thought that this was going to be my life.
Hold on quick, Jess. I'm sorry, I got to interrupt. Say that again, beloved. How old are you again today, sir?
35.
35? See, look, man. Look, I keep telling y'all.
Won't he do it? Won't he do it?
We are waiting on the birth certificates of everybody on this panel and Miss Ebb, who's sitting in there in the comments, because I don't believe none of y'all are as old as you say you are.
I be telling white people we don't age in dog years, and they get upset. Continue. I'm so sorry.
Oh my God. Dog years. Just aging like Hellman's mayonnaise. Playing. So you know, it wasn't a smooth. It was not accepted. It was not something that was celebrated. There was no, you know, and by that time I was actually an ordained minister. So I had already been on the mission field. Like I had already done 11 years work, right? And it was finally like, no, I have to be authentically me. And now at the age that I'm at 35, I definitely didn't picture myself where I am now. And so that's why I kind of am like, right now, I'm just going to identify as queer because who knows? Who knows? I've been shocked before. But primarily, I've only dated men. And my Black family, which I was raised by, always knew, but it was just hush hush. It was like a family secret. Like, we don't want anybody to know. We don't want to talk about it. We're not going to talk about it. So it's very dismissive. And so that does a lot to a person where you can't talk about, hey, I'm single. I feel lonely. I want partnership. I want love. I want engagement. Nobody wants to hear about that. So you just have to keep it to yourself. I really can't speak to my white side because I wasn't raised by them. I don't really know my mom's side very well, but they're from West Virginia, so I'm sure it wouldn't be. I'm sure it wouldn't go over well there either. And as far as fibromyalgia, I also didn't get that until I was in my mid-20s. So I went from being a high-level athlete, a gymnast, and a cheerleader to all of a sudden being incapacitated. And my family just could not understand. And they were like, you just gotta get it together. You just gotta get stronger. You just gotta get stronger. And I'm like, no, like there's something really, really wrong with me. And again, it was just that dismissiveness of like, we're not going to talk about it. We're not going to focus on it. The saying, don't nurse and rehearse it is what I would hear a lot. Don't nurse and rehearse it. And I'm like, I'm not nursing or rehearsing anything. I'm speaking my truth and I'm telling you what I'm going through, but y'all don't want to hear it.
Yeah, I understand that. For me, my experience is, I'm a Black woman until I come out and say that I'm bisexual. And then I've heard that's some white people shit. White people do that. That's how you know you were raised by your white mom. Cool. My white mom thinks it's a phase too. So, I mean, okay. And it's definitely, for as far as my CPTSD goes, for anybody that doesn't know, it's complex post-traumatic stress disorder, meaning that I have had several moments of trauma going on in my life, and that all basically rewired my brain. Because you ain't finna call me crazy, you ain't finna call me broken. I'm still here, I'm still standing, and I still do what the fuck I gotta do. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there either. I hear a lot from the Black community. That was a while ago. Can't you move on? Get over it already. I've heard a lot of deflection. A lot of that. That's white people mess. We just keep pushing. We keep pushing. Like, you don't need to sit here and complain. Okay, I'm not complaining. I'm telling you, like, how I am, like who I am, like, because this is part of me. So for me, I've definitely had similar experiences to everybody here that's talking. It seems like basically the Black community feels like we got enough fucking issues, so we're not going to talk about your issues, even though we are part of the Black community. As far as my sexuality, white people shit. It's a phase. I'll get over it. I haven't found the right man. First of all, me liking men is proof that my sexuality is not a fucking choice, but okay. So, yeah, I definitely understand. I definitely feel what y'all are saying on another level. So let's talk about some of the dumb fuck shit we hear. So what are some common microaggressions that y'all have faced in the Black community? And this can be regarding anything, honestly, because we've got mixed people, we've got we've got a dark skinned woman here. Like this can be anything, but who want to open that can of worms first? I see Tia got their hand up.
Oh, ooh, ooh, baby. Okay, are you ready? Are you ready for this? So, because I am non-binary, I'm pansexual and polyamorous. When people find out, especially when Black men find out, they're like, oh, he must not be putting it down right if you have to go to a woman too and have another partner. Nah, he's definitely putting it down better than I have had with Black men, but I digress. He's putting it down. It's
Ooh.
also that their mentality, like, because my husband is a white man, they're looking at him like, yeah, you don't know what you're doing. It's like, oh, but he does. But I digress. It's that, well, why do you need another partner if you already have one? And I'm just like, because I can love more than one person. There's no problem with that. Why is it so hard for you to understand that a person can love multiple people and it be perfectly fine? And I understand the idea that, subconsciously a lot of people just have their jealous mentality. Just people live in the idea of jealousy, and that's understandable. But when you have a relationship like my husband and I, you should automatically just have trust. And for me, with past relationships, there was no trust there. And so when I got into the relationship I'm in now, we were like, okay, so not only can we trust each other, but we can love a person together while we still love each other. And when it comes to Black people and them hearing about our relationship and our, how comfortable we are with each other, they're just so confused, and they say, oh, that's some white people shit. No, that's some Tia shit. That's Peter shit. That's our partner shit. That why are we, if we're so busy trying to take away the stereotypes that the white community have put onto us, why are we continuously putting stereotypes onto other communities? Why can't a Black person love two people at the same time and it not be anything? Why is it that if someone looks at me and says, oh, you like two people, you're a player?
So I got a question.
Go
I got
ahead.
a question real quick. Do you think that these isms, that these phobias, do you think they are rooted in anti-Blackness and white supremacy?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And the only reason why is because since being on TikTok, I've learned a lot. And just from looking at TikToks and doing my own research behind them, our people used to have same-sex relationships. Africans didn't care. Think about it this way: the Greeks, oh, those guys were having orgies, and it was in tiers too. If you were on the bottom of the totem pole, if you didn't have that much money, you were having orgies with other men. It only was when you had a certain amount of status when you had orgies with women. It was like a luxury to have orgies with women. And it's like, why are we acting like like being part of the LGBTQIA plus community is so outside of the norm when it used to be so normal thousands of years ago? I don't, and so that's where that white supremacy comes in, because Christianity made us believe that that was wrong, and Christianity deemed it as a sin. This is why I grew up Christian. My sister-in-law is a minister. My brother is a youth pastor. I've heard it all. I've heard when I ask about so how come the Bible was translated from boy to man? And he came up with it's how you interpret it. I said, well, I interpret it as man shall not lay with little ass boy. That's how I interpret it. And he was like, but that's wrong. I was like, but you said it's how I interpret it. So that's where Christians have really just fudged it all up for everybody, because again, first of all, we wouldn't be Christian if we weren't taken away from our home, but I digress. We would have still been doing our thing, having intercourse with other people of the same sex. And they also didn't necessarily identify as one or the other gender, because gender is just a made up construct.
Definitely. I agree with look, you and me, we gonna have to have some conversations about white Christianity and history, because I love history. Um, who's next? What kind of microaggressions have y'all dealt with?
I shall go. Are you sure you're not Hispanic? Are you sure you're not Latina? Are you sure you're not Latina? Because I know a Latina when I see one. Really? Oh, you just haven't. When I say I'm bi, oh, well, you mean I could turn you straight. I'm sorry, what? That part, Ed, that part. Uh, then there's the well, if you have epilepsy, how come I haven't seen you have a seizure? Bruh. People are
Why the fuck they want to see you have a seizure though?
They're so uneducated, and then they really think, everybody literally thinks that if flashing lights happen, like you see how I have my little LED lights, people literally think that those are going to do something to every single person that has epilepsy. Like, I don't know why people think that that's going to do something to me, or why why they would want to see me have a seizure. That's really weird as shit. But yes, that's weird. Why would you want to see that? I don't understand. But they do ask these stupid things, and they do say these stupid things.
It's the fetish for me.
Yes, it's the fetishization of the biracial, bisexual Black women, dark-skinned Black women who are also fetishized for being bisexual. The men who are fetishized, I ain't gonna leave you out, John Boo. Okay? Because you out here serving face, but we're gonna come back to you in a second. But yes, it is all of that for me. And I'm just, do y'all have like a savior complex or something? Is there a savior complex somewhere in there? Because I feel like I'm being thrown into like the savior pit. Okay, I feel like somebody's trying to save me, and it's like literally, don't save her. She don't want to be saved. Don't save her, as per J. Cole.
Okay, so hold on. Miss McPherson.
There are different types.
Yes, there are different types. We're just specifically speaking on Black Girl Warrior's experience. Yes, there are photosensitive sensitive types of epilepsy where flashing lights and stuff like that can set off a seizure. We're just speaking about her personal experience right now.
Right. Now, I have a different type of epilepsy. Doctors still don't know anything about it. But they still don't understand it, I should say. But I am not set off by lights. And people, for some reason, assume every time they find out that I have epilepsy, they always assume that because I'm not in a wheelchair or because I don't have specific symptoms or a specific type of, again, invisible illness, because it's an invisible illness that I am going to look a certain way and I'm not sick, my seizure, I'm lying about having seizures. I'm lying about being epileptic. And ironically enough, people get so offended when they're told they're epileptic. They don't like the term epileptic. I'm like, but that's the term. And then as far as being bisexual goes, they really think they really pursue bisexual women just to turn them straight.
Speaking of what you said, as far as some people not liking the term epileptic, I think that also proves that being deaf, being having fibromyalgia, being epileptic, being poly, none of those are monolithic. Just like being Black is not a monolithic experience, same with being disabled or in the LGBTQIA plus community. Stop assuming that we're all the fucking same. Stop it. Because what triggers one person with CPTSD ain't going to trigger me. What's going to trigger me ain't going to trigger somebody else. You know, I can't speak for everybody else's disability, but I mean, you can't expect us all to be and react the same way. Or it's like Deaf Princess said, stop assuming that we're fucking broken or fucking fragile. Because that doesn't, the two are not mutually exclusive. Like that doesn't being disabled does not equal fragile. And speaking of Deaf Princess, what kind of microaggressions have you dealt with?
Oofda. How much time is this podcast? When do we run till?
Hey, whenever we shut it down.
So I mean, starting from the tippity tap, like, so being deaf, it's you talk, but you talk. Like if you guys frequent my TikTok, you'll see that 90% of it is just pointing out really dumb things that hearing people do that are not mutually exclusive to being deaf. Like, I think the trend was just like, well, how would you say I'm hungry if you were blind? You'd say I'm hungry because that's not mutually exclusive to being a mute or being nonverbal. Like, and then at the end, they were like trying to do these makeshift signs that weren't anything in sign language, but it's just like, they were like, oh, well, hungry, I would pat my stomach, whatever. And I'm just like, well, first of all, it takes 2.2 seconds to Google hungry in sign language. Let's just get that straight. Second of all, again, just because you're deaf doesn't mean you are nonverbal. The only reason why we use our hands to speak is because if we were to speak, the other person wouldn't hear what we were saying. That's why sign language is a thing. Just like deaf people have, or just like blind people have Braille, because if you were doing a gesture or showing someone a sign, they wouldn't receive what you were saying. Sign language is a receptive language. It's so that the person can receive what you're saying, not so that you can project what to say, if that makes sense. Like, so when
is it kind of like when you listen to understand and not listen to respond? You're speaking so that they understand, not just for you to respond. Am I correct in that?
100% correct. Sign language is so that the other person can receive what your message, not so that they can give a message, because I can, like I said, I can talk to any hearing person and they would never know I'm deaf. You guys can understand me just fine sitting here on this microphone. A deaf person wouldn't have that same experience. I would sit here and talk like this and they wouldn't understand me. That's why you need sign language. That's the only reason why. And if it so happens to be two deaf people, guess what? It's because you have two deaf people that need to understand what each other are trying to say. Like, so, oh, you talk, so you probably aren't as deaf as you think. Like, first of all, I'm not going to bring you my audiologist paperwork. I don't owe you anything. Like, I'm never going to sit out here and try to prove how deaf I am to you. Like, the fact that I need hearing assistance in itself should be enough for you. Like, trust and believe, no one wants to wake up and stick things in their ears every single day for fun. Like, I do it because it's accessibility and everybody deserves that. Or like, you get the like you could do it yourself. There's different, like there's all types of captions and all types of stuff out there for you to be able to do your own. So like 90% of the time on TikTok, people are like, well, why do we have to caption it if there's definitely programs out there that'll do it for you? Access, period. Like just because I found the program doesn't mean everybody out there knows the program, and I'm only one person and my voice is only so big. Like there's no one experience. Like, and when you're deaf, it's not like all of these things are magically unlocked for you to know how to be deaf now. Like if you're born and like you're born into it, yes, of course, like you're getting a head start on like accessibility things that you have access to, but definitely not when you're late deaf. You have to figure that crap out on your own. Like nothing just flips a switch and you're just like, oh, well, this app does this and I know this will do that. Like if I'm saying, hey, captions are nice, you should think about doing them, and your response is, you can figure that out if you really want to know what I'm saying. 90% of the time. 90% of the time. And as far as being my sexuality, like my experience is a little bit different. Like, and it might be just because of the people that I'm around. It's less of I'm confused. They usually like they believed me. Like I was saying, because I thought I was lesbian at first. Like I didn't have any girl crushes until I was well into my late teens, or I mean male crushes until I was in my late teens. My early teens was all females crushes. So they're like, okay, she's probably a lesbian. But like there was some like, oh, you just haven't met the right man. But most of the time it was, okay, so can I get you and another girl? Like, would you be down for doing like menages, threesomes? Like, are you open to that idea? Like, those are the microaggressions I have. Like, no, I'm not into group sex. I need you to get out of here.
Like, I've literally said to men, like, why would you think that we would both want to be disappointed? I think the fuck not. Stop asking for him. It's fucking weird. It's so weird.
Yeah, it's literally the worst. So like when in mine, yeah, so with mine it's definitely like, oh, well, do you know other lesbians and would they be cool, or like other bisexuals and would they be cool? Like, you know somebody for me, or no. It's and I come from a family that is like extremely toxic to homosexuality, like from one side. So like I came out as, you know, bisexual, lesbian, or pansexual, doesn't really matter what I came out as. They're like, all right. But if I literally had a family member say, if my son came home, said he was gay, I don't really know what I would do with that information. It was just in a negative light. And I literally called him. I was just like, you know what? Don't worry about it. They got me. Like, if you can't love your son through homosexuality, I don't know what to tell you. You're a crap parent. And at first, I thought they were one of the best fathers I had known.
Say it the fuck again.
Like, yeah, if you can't love your child through homosexuality, you're a crap parent. 1000%. Like, and I didn't have that experience. My parents were like, all right. But when I got older and I figured out this was very one-sided, this was only toward women, not toward men. Like, they were like, okay, Shaniqua, you do whatever you want. You know, do whatever you want. But if one of my brothers or a male cousin were to come out, which has never happened, but I already know how my father felt about it, that's probably why they never did. And then they perpetuate that toxic into the atmosphere. Like, I go to bat on my social media when they post things that are blatantly homophobic. And I'm just like, you are trash. I don't care. You're my blood right now. And I'm telling you right now, you're trash. Like, this is, and I will correct it every single time. You will never hear me defend them. Like, you will get dragged on social media and I'll be right there with them. Yep. Get them. Like, that's disgusting. There's no reason for it. And to top on to Tia's point, a lot of it, yes, white Christianity did the bulk of it, and slavery did a big bulk of it. Breakbacking our males disturbed the whole ecosystem of what Black males thought homophobia was, or homosexuality is. They were seeing me being broke down, taken against my will, generation after generation in front of their wives and children, to the point where if you do that with another man, if you can stomach doing that with another man, you're just as nasty as the slave owner is. You're perpetuating that same disgusting behavior as people that tried to enslave us and break us down into nothingness. But that's not what it is now. That's something that we definitely have to unlearn. There's being raped against your will and humiliated, and then there's loving someone who loves you back. I don't understand how that difference is not being received. I don't understand how they're not getting it, but there is a definite severance in that connection where our whole community, and yes, I understand it is generational trauma, but that paired with white Christianity is the lethal mix of homophobia, especially within our Black males in our community.
Can I add something?
Oh yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. This is a conversation. Go ahead.
So to add to Deaf Princess, let's not forget either, some of these white slave owners were also raping the men as well. Like, let's not forget, low key, there's gotta be some type of male traumatic, like almost like genetically, like in our, like coded in our men's head, that you're not supposed to want another man, because specifically this reason right here, because of the fact that our men were raped. And which is a completely understandable thing, because there are some times where like, for example, I have a friend who was inappropriately touched by a man, and I asked him, so if that didn't happen, do you think you would be bisexual? Because I'm not the only one who assumed that you were, and I probably won't be the last. And he was like, honestly, possibly, because I can respect the idea of loving other people, and there have been guys that I have been attracted to, but not in a physical aspect. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense, because it messes with your mindset on how you see these individuals. Like, I had another friend who her male cousin, made her and her other girl cousin do things together. And it just, something that traumatic, you will never really get over. And I think it's inherent, and people don't like to really talk about that part. Like, not only were the women being raped, but the men were too, and people don't want to talk about it because of the fact that men are supposed to be this, masculine, chauvinistic type, aura around them. They don't want to talk about, hey, you guys that happened to you too. It's okay to acknowledge that history and still be okay with loving who you love. Like, we shouldn't have something like that we shouldn't have something like that be the reason why we judge other people for loving who they love. That I think that's where, as a community, we need to tackle that, because that's the issue. In my opinion, that's one of the biggest issues, that they can't acknowledge the history of our Black men's trauma. It's just not negotiable or feasible to talk about the trauma that Black men have when it comes to sexual assault. But all day we'll talk about how the women were raped all day. we need to start acknowledging the fact that these men were too. So then maybe, just maybe, that will give a little bit of hope. Maybe that will just give a little bit of perspective. Like, oh, maybe that's why I'm so insecure with the LGBTQIA plus community.
So, I want everyone's opinion on this. So, would you think it is fair to say that because of our history during chattel slavery, that the Black community, especially Black men, have spent so much time demonizing the trauma that had happened to them, that instead of focusing on healing from that trauma, that they have also demonized homosexuality and don't understand that they are two very, very different things? That be a fair assessment to everybody?
Yes.
Definitely.
John?
Can I add something?
Yes.
One of the things that I really truly believe is a root issue is homosexuality, especially within Black men, is equated to weakness. And as a Black man or a Black woman, you are expected to be strong and not exhibit any type of weakness. And that also goes for any type of disability. Like, that goes for fibromyalgia with me. That goes with, my sexuality. That's deemed as like weakness. But I will say that I've had a different experience in the Black community than I have in my own household because I was a pastor's kid. I will say that for me, Black women have always been like my safe haven. Always been my safe haven. If anytime there was like some shit about to go down, or like somebody was like calling me names or whatever, my homegirls were always there for me. Always there for me. Always a safe place. So I'm curious as to y'all's opinion on that dynamic. And if you guys ever experienced something like that. Like, did you have like a little gay friend that like you was always going to bat for, that you was always sticking up for?
Look, I'm the kind of person where if I'm cool with you, I will hurt a motherfucker for coming at you.
Okay.
I've always been that, like my loyalty has always been on 10. Always. So yeah, like I've had people come at, my gay friends, and I've gotten arrested a couple times when I was a teenager for it.
Okay.
Because I don't play. But yeah, I do. One thing that really irks me is when people say that gay men are not real men. What the fuck is your definition of a real man? Being this alpha, which I hate that term, by the way. Alpha is
again,
so
it's the weakness.
Literally. But like, for me, a real man is someone who can unapologetically be themselves.
Okay.
So to me, I've seen your TikToks, I've been on your lives. You're a real man. Let a motherfucker try saying that you're not.
Okay.
We gonna fight. Give me them addresses, baby. We gonna fight. And the same thing goes for like, let somebody come at Tia. We gonna fight. Like that's just how I've always been. If I consider you a friend, I consider you family. So I look good as fuck in orange. And I ain't about to play it. I'm not about to play. So that's just me personally. What about y'all?
Yeah, definitely for me.
Oh, go ahead.
I was like, definitely for me. When I thought I was a lesbian, there was one guy that was openly gay, and we were in middle school, right? So like openly lesbian, openly gay, outcasts. We were both Black, and we were just like, forget it, we're just gonna marry each other, whatever. We got each other's back, period. And I literally loved him. Like, I knew he didn't like me the same, like, we didn't like each other that way, but like the love was there. And that literally goes for anybody that I feel has the strength to stand up and be like, look, this is who I am. It's, you know, you're going to take it or you're going to leave it. And I will not let that person be bullied, like, ever, at all. Like I said, I go to bat my own family and their toxicness. Like, I play football with trans women whom I love. And I'm just like, you're trans. They're just like, you play football with women that are biologically men. Like, you're not afraid you're going to get hurt. And I'm like, no, because they're women. Like, I don't feel like
Trans women are women.
They're
Enough
women.
said. We ain't arguing about that bullshit here.
We're not arguing about it at all. Like, they're women. Like, that is her name. Like, I will not hear anything about it. I will come at you as hard as I physically can, just being me, protecting anybody in the LGBTQIA community for just trying to exist. There's no reason that we should be fighting this freaking hard to just exist and live the life we want to live. I'm not inviting you into my life. I'm not showing you my life. You don't pay none of my bills. I just want to live the life I live until I die. You shouldn't have a say in how that happens.
And can I just add some controversy?
Let's hear it, baby.
Speaking of growing up in the church, now let me tell you how many times some DL ministers have wanted to lay hands in the prayer closet. Okay?
Woo! Child, I grew up Catholic.
Okay?
Literally.
How many times they want to lay hands in a prayer closet and then go on that pulpit and start talking about X, Y, and Z Leviticus? Girl, bye. Girl, bye.
I also want to say that a lot of these pastors will sit there and, like you said, quote Leviticus and everything like that and demonize homosexuality, even though it wasn't homosexuality in 1946 until 1946. But I digress. But they don't talk to the motherfucker that's cheating on his wife.
Hello.
They don't talk to the woman that's wearing mixed fabrics or eating shellfish.
Or speaking.
Literally, they don't talk about, they just want to choose to demonize homosexuality because it's different. And they choose to believe that homosexuality or any kind of LGBTQIA plus sexuality is a lifestyle.
Choice.
I didn't wake up one day and be like, I like women too. The fuck? This is just who I am. Go ahead.
Can we talk about that phrase real quick? Being gay or being part of the LGBTQIA plus community is a choice. Okay, then why haven't you chose to come out of the closet yet? If it's a choice, then why did you choose to be straight? Because when I hear that phrase, it's a choice, that tells me you got some skeletons in your closet that you need to release because they need to become human beings again. And I feel as though that's where, like, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to quote, I just don't understand why you have to force gay relationships and shove them in our faces. Oh, like we're not, like heterosexual relationships aren't shoved in our motherfucking faces every day.
Period.
That part.
Like the American nuclear family. They ain't two mommies. They ain't two daddies. There ain't two mommies and a daddy. So shut the fuck up.
Exactly.
And what's with the homosexual agenda? Where did that come from? Because I ain't got no agenda book. I'm so disorganized. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, it's not like today I'm going to give a homely girl a makeover. And then I'm going to go to elementary school and tell everybody that gay is the way. You know what I mean? Like, where does that rhetoric come from?
I know exactly where it comes from. It comes from projection. So
absolutely.
So like they're talking about how the LGBTQIA plus has an agenda when they're the ones who have been pushing a straight agenda since the beginning of colonization. You have been the ones pushing a straight agenda and you're projecting now. And now, like, just like when you hear white people saying, reverse racism. Is it because you're being racist towards people right now? Like, like it's the contradiction, the hypocrisy, and the deflection for me. It's so easy to point fingers at another particular group instead of owning up to your own mistakes or owning up to your own sexuality. Like, for example, people like to say we are the most predatory people out there when it's your uncle raping your niece. It's your auntie raping her nephew. It's not it's or it's the closeted minister. It's so harmful to us as a community because people are, even if people don't see us like that, when they just hear the rhetoric, they're just like, oh, that must be true. Like that must be how LGBTQIA plus community is, because this is all I'm hearing right now. And that's where it's just like, stop telling us we have an agenda until you guys get yours under control.
For me, like last I checked, like nobody was trying to infiltrate the straight community and go on a campaign to be like, everybody needs some dick in their life. Like, you know, never recall that. But
I'm
how many
sorry,
conversion
Susie Q.
camps?
I don't want you like that. I'm sorry, Susie. I don't want
So
you.
sorry.
You don't have to worry about it.
You know?
And that also speaks to biphobia. And that goes across the board. We are seen as greedy, promiscuous. Look, I'm not trying to fuck your box troll looking ass. Just because I like men and women does not mean I am trying to sleep with you. Period. Like, if I'm trying to sleep with you, I will let you know, boo. Okay?
It'd be the
Literally.
crustiest, dustiest, mustiest. You'd be like, don't be trying none of that gay shit with me. Boy, like, I wish you have some confidence.
Literally.
You have some confidence and audacity.
If you bold enough to think that I'm trying to sleep with you just because I'm bisexual, look in the mirror, babe. Look in the mirror. You loud, wrong, and fucking ugly. Move around.
If I was trying to sleep with somebody, they would know it. They would know it. Trust and believe. People need to understand that we're just first of all, we're just people. If we're interested in you, we're going to, do the flirting thing. We're going to, be a little sly with our words. I don't understand why people look at us like they can't tell if we're flirting or not, and they're just going to automatically think we want them. They're just mad because they can't be with us. It's just, they're just mad. That's all that is. They're just mad because they can't live their truth. Because it's always the loudest ones that 5-10 years down the road, you find out that they're gay. Hey, I just wanted to let you know, back in high school, when, I used to talk all that mess about you. Yeah, I finally came out. I just wanted to see. Bitch, no. No. You were talking all that mess a few years back, and now you want me to try. No. You know what? I'm happy that you came out. I'm happy that you're living your truth, but fuck that.
I agree. And just let everybody know, if you have questions, all the commenters, if you have questions, feel free to drop them. We'll try to answer them. Let's move on. So talking about healing, what sort of things in the Black community, like what changes to the general mindset of the Black community do you think needs to happen in order for us to heal and all come together?
Sorry, my I hate my phone. I think we need to handle our traumas head on. I think that's the first thing as a community we need to do. We need to accept what happened. And unfortunately, it's sick and sad that it happened to human beings. Like, as humans, we shouldn't allow that, and we shouldn't look at that and say, oh, well, that was in the past. We need to acknowledge it. We need to acknowledge our ancestors' traumas. We need to acknowledge our grandparents' traumas, our great grandparents' traumas, before we can start to move on and start teaching our kids that how we're acting today is not how we want them to act tomorrow. And until we are able to say, hey, as a community, I love y'all, but we're fucking up right now. Like that, and that's where I always like to tell Black conservatives, hey, you can still be a Black conservative and support your people and still call out the hypocrisy in our community. I do it on a daily basis. I call out the homophobia in the Black community. I call out the hypocrisy that sometimes Black people have within our own community. And it's okay, because I still love my kings, and I still love my queens, and I still love my royalty of the Black community. It's not a problem. That's when you see that you really love the community. That's when somebody is actually holding you accountable, is showing love and respect, especially within our community, especially the way some of us do it. And when then we're attacked by our own people, and for what? Because we want to hold you accountable and we don't want you to start acting like these colonizers? I'm sorry, but no, that's a no for me, bro. Like, we need to just acknowledge our traumas as a collective before we can continue to move on. Because we're not going to get any better until we acknowledge that.
I agree. I definitely agree. Who's next?
I think that as far as healing goes with our people, just like I'm just gonna piggyback of what Tia said. I agree, but at the same time, I feel as though, well, you're a grown person. You're a grown ass man, woman, non-binary person. You know better. You know when you see a person that is walking funny outside, when a person is not able to move, when a person has a problem physically that you cannot see, you know better than to pick on them. That's not generational trauma. That's just messing with somebody just because you can't. That's being a bully. We don't do bully. Just like when it comes down to healing for when it comes for homophobia, biphobia, all the phobias of the LGBTQ community. When it comes down to our community for that, it disappoints me, but honestly, I feel as though that we probably can try and get somewhere for healing, but I honestly believe it's going to take a long time to heal from generational trauma and from everything that they feel when it comes to their Christian beliefs is wrong with it at the end of the day. And then there are these new generation of people that, decide to attack people based off of their sexuality. As far as healing goes, how exactly am I supposed to feel safe walking around a person that feels like they need to be a predator to me because of my sexuality, or attack me due when I am at my most vulnerable point? How do we exactly heal from that unless you acknowledge that you're a bully, unless you acknowledge that you have toxic masculinity in your system? Like, unless you acknowledge those types of things, we can't heal. And when I say you, I mean literally as the people in our community that do these types of things. That's all I just wanted to get out. Sorry.
I hear what you're saying. Sorry, my kids are going crazy. I don't know if y'all can hear them, but I'm sorry. Who's next?
What the hell was that?
That was Henley. That's all Henley.
Never mind. Go
For
ahead.
me,
Carry on.
and I'll touch on this again, maybe because I'm the only man on the panel right now. Again, I did not experience a lot of homophobia from Black women. I really didn't. They were always my defenders. I think it comes down to toxic masculinity and being viewed as weak, or you're not a man, or you're lesser than. And until we unpack that and unravel that, then I just don't see where the healing can take place. For me, I just don't think that if we don't address that head on why do we feel the need to feel so hyper masculine and so hyper strong and dominant and domineering, and why is it so weak of you to have love for another man, to fall in love with another man? Why is that viewed as weakness? I don't think until we unpack the why we're going to be able to heal. Because I truly don't understand the why. Still in 2021, why do we feel it's so weak? Why do you have to be so strong? Why do you have to be so domineering? Why? Like, I literally saw my twin brother, his youngest son, and I always told him, like, the Lord's going to give you a child that's just like me. And ironically enough, like, his child looked more like me than him. But Lord knows I didn't sleep with his wife because, you know. And he crossed his legs. So he crossed his legs like this, and I do it all the time. Cross his legs. And he said, don't do that. Don't do that. Stop crossing your legs like a girl. And I'm like, are we still doing this? Are we really doing this still? Like, why do that to a child? Like, he's just sitting on a couch feeling comfortable. Why are we still doing that? I don't understand that, truly.
Yeah, I get that. I went off. My mom's roommate of like 13 years. My middle son Jackson, he's 7. He saw on a TV some My Little Pony toys or whatever when that movie came out, and he said he wanted them. And this dude literally said, "No, those are girls' toys." And then tried telling me this year that he's gonna take my sons for the summer so they can learn how to be men. I said, come near my fucking house, I'm gonna stab you in the fucking eye, because my sons are going to be men. Doesn't matter how they grow up, they're still going to be men. Unless they come out saying that they have been living in the wrong body and stuff like that. That hasn't happened. But if they did, cool, you my daughter now. In my opinion, I feel like we need to destigmatize mental health issues and address our trauma, address our generational trauma, address the trauma that goes on within the Black home. We don't talk about our uncle who likes to linger on those hugs a little too long. We don't talk about some Black moms over-sexualizing their sons and acting like they're grown men, calling them their king and all this other shit. We don't address these things in private, like within our homes. So we need to do that first before coming out and trying to heal as a community. Because when you destigmatize the mental health issues and you address the generational trauma that we've gone through, then I feel like we can start asking these questions like, what makes a man a man? Why do I have to, why do I have to be overmasculated, hypersexualized? What makes a woman a woman? Why do I have to be submissive and look my best 24/7? I feel like if we don't address that, we can't address the other issues. We can't address the homophobia, we can't address the ableism until we address our own trauma, our own stuff going on. What about you, Deaf Princess? What do you think?
I feel like you guys all had really, really good starts to the LGBTQIA plus, like how we can start there, because like that's like the huge topic. We see a lot of the toxic in our community with that. With the ableism though, within our community, it needs to start with education. Like you were saying, yeah, we have to destigmatize the mental thing. Like if me saying, bro, you need therapy shouldn't be a terrible thing to you. We all should be in therapy. Like we should all be in therapy. You shouldn't take offense when I'm like, do you talk to somebody? Do you have someone to talk to? Because you look like you need someone to talk to. You need to get some shit out that you don't want anyone else to know about. Like, our community has made it impossible to start caring for our mental health. That's the one that needs to start. Then you can start getting outside yourself, because once you start shedding down yourself and all of these things that you're holding so close to the chest, where you feel like taking on someone else's or even just acknowledging someone else's struggle is too much for you. I feel like the reason why ableism is so weird in the Black community is because everybody has so much that they're holding close to the chest, whether it's generational trauma, independent trauma, or whatever, their own struggles. They couldn't fathom starting to understand somebody that has disability. And like that's where it just lies. That dog dies right there. Because like I'm just like, oh yeah, so I'm deaf and whatever. And they're just like, whoa, listen. I got rent, I got my car, I got all this stuff going on in my life. I got trauma from my growing up. I got all these other things that I'm thinking about constantly. I can't even begin to think, like, I can't take on your issues, shorty. Like, you are too much, because I already got so much, because you're not going to therapy and talking about it and shedding off some of those layers and getting them off your chest so you can start working on yourself and then educating yourself. Disability is not a one size fit all. Like you said, CPTSD is not the same as someone else's CPTSD. My deafness is not the same as someone else's deafness. I will literally get, well, and I know I will. If I post any of this, people will be like, well, how are you hearing this podcast if you're deaf? Because deaf is on a spectrum. And if you don't know that by now, you need to open a book. I don't know what to tell you. Like, deafness spectrum, blindness spectrum, nonverbal spectrum, fibromyalgia, different types. Everything has a different type, and everybody is unique in that type. So it's not just I have this kind of deafness at this level. It's still very unique to me. Like and that goes along with the life that you've lived. Like, so you put your disability mixed with what the doctors tell you, mixed with your personal journey in life. There's so many different components to the individual disability than there is just having a doctor write a prescription or having a doctor sign off that you have this or that. There's more than that. Like, because they could put deaf on they'll put deaf on my chart and then put deaf on someone else's chart that can't hear a dime. Couldn't do this without an interpreter on the screen, right? We're both deaf. Yes, because that's what the doctor said. But in our unique experiences of being deaf, we're completely separate people. We have to take that into account So we have to be educating ourselves that there is no one blanket statement for anyone that is disabled. And that just goes along with wanting to educate yourself, not wanting to be so worried about your own self that you cannot possibly worry about someone else.
Yeah, I agree. Where disabilities is not a monolith, essentially. So we have a question from Peter. When did you all become comfortable with your sexuality, and what was your mountaintop moment? Who would like to answer that question first? Don't make me pick.
John, go first. I see you smiling down there.
You're still muted, John.
I had to switch out my headphones because meanwhile my phone is low-key dying. But I'll go on. I feel like what was the question? Y'all have me on a whole tangent. I was all fired up and ready.
When did you all become comfortable with your sexuality, and what was
Bing,
your
bang, boom.
mountaintop
Okay.
moment?
So I was 27 and I was finally like, you know what? Fuck this. Fuck this. Like, I done tried to pray it away. I done tried to praise it away. You know, I pleaded the blood. And come to find out, like, Jesus has loved me this entire time. Meanwhile, I'm battling him over his love or in my own experience. And I decided I packed my bags up and I moved to LA and I started modeling. And that's when I was really starting to stand in my own power and my own uniqueness and my own beauty. Because before all of that, that was all out the window. Like that was never an option for me to stand in my power. It was all about like, I have to bring honor to my family. I have to uphold this picture perfect family that is without spot, wrinkle, or blemish. And once I let go of that, that's when I was like, okay, now it's time to live. Now it's game on. Now I get to show up in the world 100%. That was my mountaintop.
Okay. This is going to sound really weird because it's confusing, but my mountaintop moment was when I met my partner, was when I met my husband, when he unconditionally loved me, when he unconditionally accepted all of me, when he when I told him that I was bisexual and I was like, I hadn't really dated women too much, he was just like, all right, when are we doing this? Like, is this the road that we're about to go down? I'm like, wait, for real? He was like, I don't want to be the one to hold you back. And it seems as though you've been held back your entire life. And you're my soulmate. You're my twin flame. You're going to be the one that dies with me in my deathbed. And I was like, you're probably right. We'll die together. And he was like, so at the end of the day, this life, the next life, and any life after, it's going to be us. So if a woman comes into our life, then that's just one more person that we can love, and we don't always have to be angry at each other all the time when we get mad at each other. Like he when I that was my mountaintop, when he told me that he loved me no matter who I loved or who I wanted to be in my skin. That was mine.
I love that. I love that unconditional love. Black Girl Warrior, Deaf Princess, who want to go?
So, I did go through a bit of confusion throughout my teenage years when I was on the fence about being bisexual. So I would call it vicarious at first, but my mountaintop moment was when I hit my 20s, like my teenage to 20s, because I started, actually dating girls and I actually was like, oh shit, I like girls and guys. But like, I started to actually fully grasp being bisexual later on in my life once I started going back to dating men. And then I started to, I started fully grasping it. And then, like, I really held on to it, like, okay, so this is me. This is me. This is me now. And I said, all right, so I like men and I like women. That's me. That is who I am. But I'm probably not, I'm still not sure who I'm going to end up with in the end. But if I'm going to have babies, I'm going to have to either, do that thing they do in the clinics. If I want, if I want to keep a woman around, because I am not I'm not a polyamorous woman. I don't share. I love you, Tia, but I can't do it. But yes, my mountaintop moment was definitely in my later years, my older years. When I became a grown up, I was like, okay, this is it. This is who we are. And yeah, that's who I am. This is me now.
And we love you just the way you are.
So you love you too.
Literally. What about you, Deaf
I
Princess?
love you too, Nikki. I love you too. Hey, Lou.
Mine was well, I guess it wouldn't be easier. Like I was pretty much just like, yeah, I'm a lesbian, but it's not really like how I came out. I guess my mountaintop moment for me would have been not the actual coming out to someone, but realizing that I'm not a selfish person. I think my biggest struggle with my sexuality was realizing that you're not selfish for wanting to love who you want to love, regardless of who that person looks like and what form that person comes in. And I would go as far as to extend that past gender and into race. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not a selfish person for dating outside of my race, just like I'm not a selfish person for dating whatever gender I want to date. Like, that has nothing to do with being selfish and everything to do with wanting to be me. Like I said, like, no one should be dictating how someone else lives their life. There's no reason why Tia should have wanted to unalive herself because she felt like she wasn't being heard or understood by her parents. Like, that was the worst time for me. And I didn't go through that necessarily because of my sexuality, but I went through that in all aspects of my life because I felt like every move I made, I was making it wrong because I wasn't making it to make someone else happy, to be gaining social acceptance. So if I wasn't making the move that everybody else would have been like, then I'm just like, oh, maybe you need to retract, think about what people want from you, then go forward in your life. We need to stop doing that. So my mountaintop moment was realizing that making decisions that made me happy and being the person that makes me happy wasn't selfish. It was self-care. And we need to learn the difference, 100% learn that difference.
Yeah, I think for me, I always knew that I liked women too. I mean, have y'all seen Xena, the warrior princess? I mean, ha! Literally. So, like, I've always known that I loved everybody equally. It didn't matter who you were, what you looked like, whatever. I think I didn't come out until I was about 14. I just kind of came home with a girl, and mom's like, "We're doing this now?" I said, "Yes, the fuck we are." She was like, "Okay, see you in 6 months." 4 years later, we finally broke up. but I think I kind of hid myself a lot as well. Um, I I didn't become comfortable in my sexuality and owning that until after having kids. Because I had my first child at 19, and because of pressure from my family, I should say my white family, um, them telling me that, you know, my son needs a father, and you know, I felt like I was put in this box of being in a straight passing relationship, and I did not I did not pick good people to be with. So if I expressed any interest in a woman, you know, even saying that an actress on TV was hot, I would I would catch heat for it. Um, so it wasn't until I broke away from that side of the family and I said, you know what, I'm me, and you know, whether I end up with a woman for the rest of my life or a man for the rest of my life, that that's neither here nor there. That doesn't make me less than. That doesn't make me less of a mother. Um, so I kind of broke out of that box, and I I'm proud of it now. I can't say that I was always proud of it, but I am definitely proud of it now. Um, so yeah, I guess that was my mountaintop moment, was realizing that I didn't have to be, just because I have kids doesn't mean I have to be in a straight passing relationship. Um, so I'm not seeing any more questions. So how can people properly advocate for the disabled or LGBTQIA plus community? I know we got some links in the description box for ASL that Deaf Princess sent me. Um, for me, CPSD, go to a therapist. I don't know what else to tell you, babe. Um, but for instance, epilepsy or fibromyalgia, or properly being able to advocate for somebody who is poly or non-binary, queer, pansexual, bisexual. Do y'all have any suggestions for the people watching?
Um, for the poly of it all, I would say don't look at it as something sexual, because not all polyamorous relationships are sexual, and I think people like to deem it as such. They like to say, "Oh, well, you know, it's just for one thing." No. No, it's not. It's for so it can be for so many other aspects, and I think people need to just start breaking the taboo behind these things. Being non-binary, doing your research, I guess, behind the definition of sex and gender, and learning that there's over 20 different genders, and it's not even just necessarily because, like, for example, some people are literally non-binary because they are physically both sexes. So I think people also need to understand that sometimes a person might identify as such, not because they don't um not because they just want to, or because they come to the realization that gender is just a social construct, but because they actually have to. And I think people just, it comes down to the research of it all. I think um finding good resources for like LGBTQIA plus community to look up. uh yeah, I think it's just doing the research behind it.
Yeah, I agree. What y'all got for me?
So, for the case of being a person with epilepsy, I would say that your best bet is to when you see a person who has a disability that you can't physically see, and then you see something happening, or you say something ignorant like, oh, they're faking it, they look just fine yesterday, or they were looking just fine 2 seconds ago. Your best bet is to not say those things. Your best bet is to try and not trigger a person based off of what you think you know. Your best bet is not to just use Google. Maybe talk to the person themselves, because like we've already said, it's different strokes for different folks. In other words, not everybody's thing is the same. For me, um, my my seizures are triggered differently. I'm like you said yourself, Jess. Your brain is wired differently for different reasons. My brain is wired differently because of different types of seizures I've had in the past. Mine started from childhood. I was 6 years old. So for me, it's just do your research. Do your research. There are so many different sites. There's epilepsy.com. There's, there are so many nonprofit organizations you can check and ask questions to. I have a whole page. My whole Instagram page literally started with me following and interacting with as many people with epilepsy as I can, because the biggest thing is people who talk about fake seizures and doing. There's a video on TikTok that I saw where there's someone who used to work in the ER talking about how you can tell if a person is having a fake seizure or not, which is completely unrealistic. You can't tell if a person is having a fake seizure or not, because
all seizures can present differently, correct?
exactly. You can't tell if the person is. Oh boy.
Okay, I see John.
I'm sorry about
moving
that.
his hand. What you got, John?
On the computer. For me, I think what it all boils down to is, even if there's not like anybody who's going to reach out, because I mean, for me and my family, I can't change nobody's mind, but what I can do is reparent myself and speak to that little John at 7 years old who was trying to tell his parents who he was. And I remember my family being like, why are you so militant about this issue? Or like, why are you so angry about this issue? It's me protecting my inner child that was not protected back then. And when push comes to shove and I'm not able to change anybody's mind, I feel like it has to come from within. Like I have to start reparenting myself. And that's exactly what I did. And that's one of the most healing things I've ever done. And I still talk to myself, even when I get like those thoughts of like, I'm not good enough, or I'm not making my family proud, because they'll still make comments. They found my TikTok and Lord Jesus, they were not pleased. And I had to have a conversation with, John, and ask him like, why do you feel this way? Like, just because something was once true and you once truly felt that you needed to be this golden boy for your family, that's no longer true. And I feel like if we don't look within first, it's very, very hard to have the expectation of anyone else reaching out, from my perspective, just because I haven't had that. So for me, it has always been like within. Like I have to reparent myself, restructure my brain, unlearn a shit ton, and love myself unconditionally. When you said your mountaintop moment was being loved unconditionally, so beautiful. Now for me, I've I've been single for a long, long time. But when I learned to unconditionally love myself and be unapologetic and not apologize for the way I am or who I am and just rock and roll with it, I feel like that's where I've gained the most healing. And I think that if we start reparenting ourselves, then of course we're going to parent our children different. And it starts breaking up that cycle.
Yeah, I think that's definitely important. We can't go into our parenting with internalized homophobia or ableism or anti-blackness, since everybody here on this panel is Black, because that does nothing but perpetuate the damaging cycle and ultimately hurt our children. So that reparenting yourself that you said, I definitely resonate with that, like, a lot. All right, Deaf Princess, what about you? What you got?
So like you said, I had already sent you all of the ASL resources that I have as far as, like, you know, learn some basic signs. You know, no one's asking you to go out and be bilingual or anything like that. But definitely just a little bit more education on what deafness is and what deafness is on a spectrum. Because guess what? It's not just you are or you aren't, or you will be or you won't be. Like, literally, deafness can be something that you get when you're older. So the best thing to do would be to educate yourself now when you're younger. Like, before you're like, oh yeah, I mean, I'm 90 years old and I'm starting to lose my hearing. Like, everybody makes that joke when they're like old and I'm losing my hearing and I'm losing my eyes and all that stuff. But it's just like, wouldn't you really like to get ahead of the game? Like, if you think that's something that could happen, knowing a couple basic signs, educating yourself on the spectrums of deafness, not being like completely in the dark on what that means. Like, when you're talking to an audiologist and they're telling you about your linear hearing loss or your cochlear damage or any of those things, and you're just like, I don't know what you're talking about, doc. Like, because 90% of the time it happens. Like, you're gonna lose your hearing. Like, that, it happens to all of us, whether you're 23 like I was, or you're 87 and you're yelling at your grandkids, like, you know what I mean? Like, you gotta speak up. Like, easy. Like, those are the easy things to do.
Can I just hear that one more time? Can I hear?
I'm doing that forever. So there's that. And with mental disabilities, like, like me and I think everybody else on this panel, there are disabilities you can't see. So just doing the bare minimum of not being a shitty person for the sake of being a shitty person, because you don't know what's going to set somebody off, what's going to make somebody go into a meltdown, what's going to make somebody go into a rage. And for the love of God, I mean this, for the love of God, don't call the police when people are having mental breakdowns. Like, mental break, and it can happen to somebody that has no history of mental crises. Like, sometimes life just gets too damn much. It can get that way and you can have a meltdown. What you need to do is educate yourself on what to do, or your local places that you can call, or social services, and what they offer as far as emergency mental health crises. Because what we've seen time and time again, when people, especially people of color, are having mental crises, we end up unalived. It's ridiculous. The fact that a mental health crisis can be understood when someone shoots up a school, but not when I'm sitting out in my front yard, like, yelling and waving my hands with no weapon in my hand. I don't understand how that stigma is drastically changed from dangerous to non-dangerous but we as a community need to figure out how we're going to help each other through these mental breaks that we have and support each other that way. Because when we start taking our own mental health seriously as a community, and I mean mental health as a community, then we can start focusing on the mental health we have inside ourselves and internally work on it individually. But the Black community as a whole has a mental health problem. Like, we all have PTSD, trauma, all of that. So when we work on that, then we go and we start talking to ourselves, doing the reparenting, going to therapy, and all those things that we need to do so that we can heal and stop putting that stigma about mental health out there, that we're either stupid or faking or any of the above, any negative connotation that you can think of that we've probably heard, or crazy, broken brain, whatever, need to be medicated, or the meds are fake, or whatever, like whatever you hear, like, because on both spectrums, either get meds to fix yourself or you're using the meds as a cop out because you're too weak to deal with your problems. It's literally, I've heard it on both sides, but no matter what, they're both wrong. You need to do what works for you.
Yeah, definitely. And to add on to that, please stop fucking telling us to go outside and it's gonna fix us. Please stop it. I like my bed more than I like nature, and there's nothing fucking wrong with that, okay? Like, literally.
Fresh air, it's gonna fix all of it. You don't have to worry about none of those problems if you just breathe some fresh air.
You got bipolar? Go outside, you'll be okay. You got fibromyalgia? What? All you need is a raw food diet. Or stop it. Just fucking stop.
Just go vegan. It's all
fix us.
Go vegan. It fixes it.
Right. Stop trying to fix
keto.
us.
Don't forget about keto.
I actually did. I went raw food vegan for a year and a half. And child, let me tell you, I was 127 pounds, looked a whole mess, just unhealthy, brittle, didn't feel no difference, was just a lot more weak and a lot more gaunt looking. Like, I'm so tired of that. Like, it's very dismissive to me.
I am almost 6 feet tall. Can you imagine me at 127 pounds?
I'm 6 feet tall.
Blow my ass into the next state. I'd be over by Deaf Princess.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm 6 feet tall, 127.
Literally. Like, I think the fuck not. And, I like potatoes. I like steak. So that ain't happening. And I like candy too. But stop trying to give us the cure-alls that you think will fix our condition because you read something on Google for 5 fucking minutes. I was just diagnosed with diabetes. Not this last Friday, but the Friday before that. And I had people coming out of the woodwork telling me what I can and can't eat and telling me what I need to do. And I'm like, yo, when did you get your medical degree? I never knew. Stop thinking that you know better than us. Stop thinking you know better than our doctors. Because you fucking don't. And we don't like that shit. And I mean, results may vary. John might not punch you in the face, but I probably will. So can you not? Tia, you just hopped back in. Do you have anything to add?
I don't even know how I got booted out in the first place.
Look, StreamYard does not want us living our best lives. So
they sure don't.
It does it to me too sometimes.
They sure don't. Here's the thing. I suffer from a lot of mental issues that I don't make public because for me it makes it worse. So I think just accepting people in not necessarily wanting to expose their whole entire truth, because again, for some people like myself, talking about certain things when it comes to my mental health make it worse. and just respect that, I guess. I don't really have much to add when it comes to the idea of disabilities, because it's just not my area to speak on, in my opinion. Just because I don't verbalize my disabilities, I don't necessarily think it's right for me to speak on it, because that's not what I'm an advocate for. And as much as I do support the advocates who do advocate for people like me and people like on this panel, I don't feel comfortable trying to talk about it or address it, because unless I'm like defending somebody because of, a mental disability or anything like that. I don't know, people handle mental health differently, and I guess I'm just a different type of person when it comes to that. So,
Well, I mean, and that's your prerogative. You don't have to talk about what mental health issues you may go through. You don't have to talk to anybody about it. That's it's your choice. It's your decision. Just like AJ over here trying to yell at me because I didn't say anything about my diabetes. Girl, I didn't say anything because I didn't want to. And that's okay. And I know she knows that's okay. But yeah. So does anybody else have anything that they want to impart on? Did we lose John? I think John might hop back in. Does anybody have anything they
Yeah,
want
I think we lost John. I can't see him on the monitors over here either.
I think he got booted just like Tia did. He'll probably pop back in.
Y'all be saying booted, and I think y'all just be hitting the wrong button. You just don't want to cop to it. Nah, I've been using StreamYard since February.
No, it's a conspiracy theory with StreamYard. I ain't listening to it.
Just don't want to cop to it. Nah, I've been using StreamYard since February. Who's got me on YouTube?
No, it's a conspiracy theory with StreamYard.
Hate crime. It's a hate crime. Hate crime.
It's a whole ass hate crime.
Please, somebody turn the dog on YouTube off.
Hate crime. It's a hate crime. Hate crime.
Please, somebody turn the dog on YouTube off.
But is there any?
The feedback was awful. My God.
It wasn't mine.
Somebody out here tripping. I don't know who it was.
John. Black Girl Warriors. They're crackling and popping too.
It was not me.
I don't trust John. John out here
today. We blaming you.
John out here serving face. He probably did it.
It was not me.
What happened?
I
don't trust John. John out here
today. We blaming you.
John out here serving face. He probably did it.
Do what?
Give all that feedback.
What happened?
I don't trust John. Who's got the dog on YouTube open?
Do what?
John, are you watching this?
My phone died. What y'all want me to do?
Who's got the dog on YouTube open?
It is John. It's all your fault. But anyway.
Damn you, you beautiful black man. Damn you, beautiful black man.
But is there anything that you guys want to impart on our viewers tonight who are listening? Is there any last words that you want to say? We're going to talk for a little bit after this ends in the, in the backstage chat. But is there anything that everybody wants to say to our viewers?
First, I would like to thank you, Jessica, for allowing us on your platform, because this was an awesome discussion. I love having discussions and conversations like this. All I would say is stay vigilant when it comes to the people in your life because you don't know if they might end up coming out of the closet or not, or you don't know if they have some type of disability, mental or physical, and you just watch what you say around people, because that's where a lot of the suicidal thoughts come in with certain people. And I would just my my brother committed suicide almost 9 years ago, and we found a book of his when we found out about it, and there was a lot of stuff that friends and family said that even though they weren't addressing him, because some of them actually didn't know he was gay, they said things that really messed with his mental, and look at where we're at now. He's gone. And I would just I just think watch what you say around people, because you don't know how it's going to actually affect their mental or what kind of trauma it might bring back up.
Definitely. Definitely. You never know what somebody's internal struggle is like. Um, so be kind in what you say. Definitely. Anybody else have anything that they would like to say?
Mind your business. Mind your
Literally.
own business. Like, I don't know how much I could stress that. Like, especially when it comes to the LGBTQIA plus community, again, like, it takes 0.0 seconds to not project how you feel someone should be living their life onto them, or what you deem is acceptable for someone else to be doing to make you feel comfortable in your own skin and your own life. Not cool. So mind your own business, mind the cheeks that part for you. That's it. That's all you got to do. Don't worry about who's parting for me. Worry about who's parting for you. And if that's a nobody, then I sincerely apologize. Like me. And for I don't think there's anything that haven't said for advocates for either mental or other types of disabilities. Just don't be a crap person. Don't try to tell them what they are, what they're not. Don't try to put them in your little cubicle that makes you feel better, and discard them to the side like they're not real human beings. Because no matter what they're going through, and no matter what disabilities they have, we're all human beings. Like, we're all human beings, and we're all just trying to live our lives.
For sure, for sure. Uh, John, Black Girl Warrior.
I just want to say I enjoyed this whole experience. Thank you for having me, Jess, and thank you to everybody that's watching, especially if you came here from TikTok. But also, I would like to add in that everything that Tia and Nikki said, yes, 100%. Please mind your business and please watch what you say, because you never know who you're hurting. And it literally does not cost anything to just be a decent human being. And if you know someone struggling, just just let them have their moment. Just let them have their moments. Don't tell them anything about themselves that they don't already know. You understand me? You can't just tell someone about themselves and you don't know how hard it is for them to get out of bed in the morning, how hard it is for them to go about their day physically with whatever they have, whatever baggage they're carrying, or whatever physical impairment they have going on. You don't know. So please just, be a decent human being and try not to shit on someone's day. Just, educate yourself, research over me search, like the consciously says. That's all.
John, what you got?
Oh, now y'all want to hear me?
I know this man. I know this man.
Y'all hear me?
Go ahead, Black Man. You good. You good.
Listen, my phone died. I don't know what you want me to do.
I know this man. I know this man. Go ahead, Black Man. You good. You good.
Yes, I'm on YouTube because my phone is dead. Listen, my phone died. I don't know what you want me to do. Lord Jesus, this echo. What y'all want me to do?
Can you please close the YouTube, please, sir, for the love of God and all that is holy.
Type something for me because I don't know what's going on.
So what I asked was if you had any imparting words for our viewers, basically any words of wisdom, anything like that. John ain't got shit to say. He just serving face. Thanks. It's just mind your business. No, I don't. No, I don't think John has nothing to say. John, can you hear us? No? Okay. All righty then. All right. I guess my words would be don't disqualify what other people are going through because you think it's not that bad. Whether it's being a part of LGBTQIA plus community and coming out, or it's having a disability. Stop thinking that somebody somewhere always has it worse. We do that enough to ourselves. We don't need to fucking hear it from you. And if we trust you enough to come to you, don't break that trust, because it's not an easy thing to get. With that, I think we are going to close it out. I want to thank all of the panelists for coming on. This was an amazing conversation. If it made you uncomfortable, fucking good, because this is not your safe zone and we need to have these conversations. I'm not fucking sorry. If y'all want to hang out just for a minute, we'll talk in the backstage chat. But everybody who is watching, good night. I love you. And don't be a dick.